Well, hello and a very good morning. Thanks for tuning in to News 9 Live. I'm Kabir Naqvi. Joining me here in the studio is my colleague Varghese P. Abraham. And those of you joining us every day in the morning, well, you know the drill. The idea of today's page one is to take a look at, well, what the page one says, but we're not discriminating against other pages or trying to tell you which newspaper or national daily does a better job. The idea is to take a look at the overnight developments. The idea is to take a look at what are some of the top headlines. It's your one-stop shop to understand what the pulse of the day essentially feels like. Now, of course, there is a list of stories that we have, sort of listed down for your perusal as well. And that's not all. We're also going to be taking a look at what the social media is abuzz with, the X, Instagram, Facebook, all of it. If there's a video that's going viral, if there's a meme that one should talk about, well, we will talk about it over here. But first and foremost, from that long list of stories that we are going to cover today, of course, Prime Minister's departure for the BRICS summit in South Africa. He's also going to be visiting Greece. After that, there's a story on the St. Stephen's,
a very interesting story. That's
admission perspective,
yes.
Which is exactly?
Which is to say that the Supreme Court said that it will not interfere in that 85-15% kind of formula that St. Stephen's had devised admission formula for minority students, in the sense Christian students in its quota, because it was said that only the CUET score had to be considered, that the Delhi University did. So anyway, we'll discuss about it.
All right, we'll talk about that. Of course, Manipur is also going to be on our agenda and focus, and also at the same time, Supreme Court, certain observations relating to two different cases. One observation on Manipur, one observation vis-a-vis the Delhi liquor scam as well. Well, we'll talk about all of it, but first and foremost, the departure statement coming from the Prime Minister, even as he leaves for South Africa. We early in the morning got visuals of him, climbing those steps on the airplane and finally departing towards South Africa. Now, he has put out a statement, but what's more important is that this is a potential time for the Prime Minister to be coming face to face and sharing the stage with the Chinese president.
Which also puts a large question on BRICS as institution, BRICS as a coming together of nations, because when it was formed, it was supposed to be some kind of a counter idea about trying to become one of those blocks that could bring in the emerging economies together. But in that, I think we already know the tensions between the countries in BRICS. So this BRICS summit is going to be interesting to see, because you have India and China not going hand to hand, especially after the kind of situation that we see in the borders. Russia, of course, being completely weakened and sidelined because of the Ukrainian conflict. And of course, Brazil, we had a change in guard in Brazil, and Brazil's priorities have in fact changed. They are looking at trying to integrate themselves more with Latin America at first, and to prop up their own domestic economy. And South Africa is caught in the middle of all this. It wants to in fact progress, but it has its own domestic economic woes to look into, and at the same time, it's not in a position to give that jumpstart that all these countries want through South Africa in the whole of the African continent. So all these issues are there, which we need to in fact fairly look at right now.
Absolutely. And the Prime Minister's departure statement ahead of his visit to South Africa and Greece, he says, I'm visiting the Republic of South Africa from the 22nd to the 24th of August this year at the invitation of His Excellency Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa, President of South Africa, to attend the 15th BRICS summit being held in Johannesburg under the South African chairmanship. BRICS has been pursuing a strong cooperation agenda across various sectors. We value that BRICS has become a platform for discussing and deliberating on issues of concern for the entire global South, including development imperatives and reform of the multilateral system. The summit will provide a useful opportunity for BRICS to identify future areas of cooperation and review institutional development. Along with this, Varghese, it says, during my stay in Johannesburg, I will also participate in BRICS Africa Outreach and BRICS Plus Dialogue event that will be held at parts of the BRICS Summit activities. I look forward to interacting with a number of guest countries that have been invited to participate in this event. I also look forward to holding bilateral meetings with some of the leaders present in Johannesburg. From South Africa, I will travel to Athens, Greece on the 25th of August at the invitation of His Excellency, the Prime Minister of Greece. This will be my first visit to this ancient land. I have the honor to be the first Indian Prime Minister to visit Greece after 40 years. Contacts between our two civilizations stretch back over 2 millennia. In modern times, our ties have been strengthened by shared values of democracy, rule of law, and pluralism. Cooperation in diverse sectors such as trade, investment, defense, and culture, from people to people contacts have been bringing our two countries closer. I look forward to my visit to Greece, opening a new chapter in a multifaceted relationship. So this is again, just like that visit to France, just like that visit to Papua New Guinea, Fiji. Of course, the United States was a full-on, full-blown state visit, but this is also going to be really hefty diplomatically.
It is going to be, but when we talk about BRICS as a country, I mean, or a bloc, not as a country, but a group of countries, that is interesting enough that a lot of nations are actually applying to join this emerging group. But the key players in it, that is to say Brazil, India, China, South Africa, Russia, well, it doesn't seem to be the happiest of family, because of course I was saying China and India both, we are not in a kind of a situation where we are in terms having that simmering border conflict that we had. That is going to be one of the biggest problems that we are going to look at. So the BRICS summit is something that we have to in fact look in as probably a block in which India is involved, but how much of it can be leveraged because of the tensions that already exist in the block is the big question, because right now it looks like only economic interests are there. And though I like the word when
the Prime Minister,
yeah, the Prime Minister leaving for
what word was it that you liked?
No, I like the way he said it, that it is the voice of the global south, because it is actually speaking about the non-European, what I would call the white Anglo-Saxon bloc actually dictating terms when it comes to the world economy as such. So it's a bloc that actually represents those people who have the potential to emerge ahead of everything. And then at the same time, the issue that we are in fact looking at over here is that will it be able to hold on?
Now take a look at this. It says open mind on BRICS expansion. India-China ties in focus as PM leaves for BRICS summit today. No word yet on the Modi-Xi meeting. Officials say schedule is still evolving. But take a look at this. Border row is in mind. The Indian Express puts it like this. After 3 years of the border standoff, the in-person BRICS summit, well, let's not forget, the 19th round of military talks, again, the same word came out.
BRICS was
we're looking for quick disengagement and no essential headway in that.
And plus there's a domestic politics involved in it, Kabir. Rahul Gandhi was at Pangong Lake and he did make a statement that the Chinese are there. So it puts the Prime Minister in a difficult position in the sense that how to deal with China.
It says it's going to be an important opportunity for Indian and Chinese leaders to meet and agree on normalizing ties. But before that, military commanders have to agree on disengagement of troops in eastern Ladakh. So no word on Modi-Xi meeting. As officials say, the schedule is still evolving. But what's your hunch telling you?
Are we going to see like it's going to be back channel talks?
Modi-Xi
no, I don't see about both the leaders. Probably, if things don't evolve the way it's supposed to evolve, both the leaders might not meet. But there will be a lot of back channel talks, and there will be certain agreements on what issues are there. For example, the engagement of BRICS with regard to the United Nations, the need to expand certain United Nations institutions that include or represent the current reality of power in the world, which is to say that you need to include China and India into it, and most importantly India needs to be included in it. And we're talking about probable expansion of the Security Council. You don't have a global south nation at all in the P5. It doesn't represent the reality of what is happening when it comes to the Security Council. It's just a post-World War II situation that is still prevalent in the Security Council. So those things, we might be looking at India and China giving the similar kind of statements. But at the end of the day, the border conflict is going to make it cold for both these countries, and I think Prime Minister also having the domestic part of it to handle would be very cautious about how he approaches it. But then Prime Minister being the Prime Minister, he could spring up a surprise and you might have a different headline saying that thaw in India-China ties.
All right. And secondly, the second aspect of his visit, when he is going to visit Greece, what about that?
See,
because in Greece, he talks about trade, he's talking about defense, he's talking about...
Yeah, there is a reason why we are going to Greece. And the thing is that Greece has a huge animosity with Turkey. It's a historical animosity that is there between Greece and Turkey. And you know how Turkey has been on several issues supporting Pakistan, especially when it comes to Kashmir. There have been several incidents where it has taken a very anti-India kind of an approach. And Erdogan, which his great vision of trying to, resurrect the Ottoman Empire again under his glorious reign, since he's been the president for such a long time.
Again, after the earthquakes, he was elected the president of Turkey again.
Yeah.
Right.
So, though there is growing dissent in Turkey against him, but it's not the way it would have affected his power equations. But he's got this grandiose plan about it. And in that, he's been attacking India ever since. And, ironically, Greece as well as Turkey are part of the NATO bloc. But both of them don't share a great bonhomie. And it is also part of how we are looking at an axis. Remember, there is an axis that has formed between Turkey, Azerbaijan and Pakistan, and it was quite evident in the war with Armenia. We have recently been arming Armenia as well with our Pinaka rockets, with radars. We have been trying to help Armenia, and now we are also looking at Turkey's arch rival, which we call as, which is Greece in fact, and we have been trying to expand our footprint with the Greeks, and we've been trying to engage them not only trade but also defense ties, and also to, in fact, show our displeasure about how Turkey has been speaking about our situation, especially in Kashmir.
But India did lend that helping hand to Turkey.
India did when the earthquake. Of course, when the earthquake came, India did.
Approaching BRICS expansion with positive intent, says the Foreign Secretary Vinay Quatra. He says India is approaching the issue of expanding the BRICS, the Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa grouping with a positive intent and an open mind. He's also quoted on saying that a large number of countries have expressed interest in joining BRICS. Quatra told a media briefing that there is a considerable interest in becoming part of the bloc to leverage opportunities for cooperation. We have been very clear that we have a positive intent and an open mind when it comes to the BRICS' expansion.
See, one thing about our
what's it going to be called? BRICS Plus? BRICS
It
Pro?
might be BRICS Plus. It might be a BRICS Plus, but
BRICS
I
Pro
think
Max?
let's keep it at BRICS Plus.
Speculation grows over PM Xi meeting at BRICS. So essentially, even as the Prime Minister is in the air somewhere, he's going to be, nearing South Africa, and he's got expansive 2 days, 22nd till the 24th in South Africa. Various other BRICS, events, some external side hustles, also side BRIC hustles. Those are also going to be attended. There are a lot of people that are going to attend, and these are happening at prominent areas in and around Johannesburg. Really cultural places in and around
also one thing that I have seen a trend that is there is that India tends to keep its economic interests separately from the geopolitical interests.
Well, absolutely.
Absolutely. Right, so that we don't lose out. They have been in a way able to, because of
today
that
even
kind
the youngster is talking about the foreign policy, and that's important.
So that is the thing about it. They have made a very intelligent way of keeping trade going on at the same time, so that economic ties are not affected, but being assertive on the geopolitical front as well, and saying your displeasure with the person saying that, of course, I have a huge displeasure with you. So, since they've been able to move this very tightrope kind of a policy, I think it has paid dividends. But then there are people who would say that, it is a tightrope walk that you're doing. But however, it's paid dividends till now.
Well, absolutely. All right. What do you want to go off to next? I was reading on the Hindustan Times a report on how the NH2 has been blocked in Manipur, and I'm reading here on the front page of the Indian Express. It says reissue identification cards lost due to violence, upgrade compensation in Manipur, says the SC panel that was constituted. Retired J&K High Court Chief Justice Geeta Mittal, who's heading the committee, has said so. The committee of former High Court judges appointed by the Supreme Court to oversee relief and rehabilitation in Manipur has submitted 3 reports on loss and reconstruction of essential documentation, upgrading the compensation and appointment of domain experts to facilitate its work. The panel is headed by Geeta Mittal, like I suggested, and includes former Bombay High Court Judge Justice Shalini Phansalkar, Pansaklar Joshi and former Delhi High Court Judge Justice Asha Menon. This is after the Supreme Court took notes of those particular reports, and the Supreme Court has asked the Manipur government to reissue identification cards that were lost due to violence. The ex-judges panels has submitted 3 particular reports.
That's an interesting, in fact, but there's also something about the non-starter of an assembly session that happened. No governor's assent. Manipur assembly session, a non-starter. Raj Bhavan did not issue notification to convene the assembly on Monday, though the state cabinet had recommended holding a special session to Governor Anusuya Uke. Congress says constitutional machinery has broken down in the state. Now that is interesting because you require the governor's assent for that particular assembly to be called in. And the 60-member Manipur assembly failed to hold a special session on Monday to discuss the ethnic violence in the state, as the Raj Bhavan did not issue a notification to convene it despite a recommendation from the state cabinet. All right, so this is the assembly session has not got the governor's assent. An official statement on August 4th said that the cabinet had recommended to the governor Anusuya Uke the summoning of the 4th session of the 12th Manipur Legislative Assembly on August 21st. This followed a similar request from the government on July 27th. However, the special session could not be held as we did not receive the requisite notification from the governor, is what a senior official has said. Now, look at the background of this. They are saying that the governor did not give the assent and that's why they couldn't hold the assembly. Not that there was already tensions building saying that a certain section of MLAs are not going to attend the assembly. And then tensions also built saying that there would be a resolution in the assembly. So since that has not been, quite neatly looked into, it looks like now they are trying to blame the governor, saying the governor did not give the assent. That's why the assembly session did not happen. Not that there was no consensus that this session should happen. That is the irony of the entire politics over here.
And apart from that, the visuals that we're getting off the National Highway 2, Manipur tribal body puts a blockade on the 2 highways. A Kuki community group on Monday clamped a blockade of 2 arterial national highways in Manipur that is likely to severely crimp the supply of goods and essentials to the state capital Imphal, even as the SC appointed committee flags missing identity documents, which is something that we've already spoken about. But so essentially 3 angles over here, Varghese. Number 1, that the tribal body has put a blockade on the 2 highways. This is the Kuki community blockade. On the other hand, the Supreme Court, after hearing the 3 reports submitted by that, all women High Court justices led panel, they submitted the 3 reports. They've said that, return these identity cards or reissue them, these IDs that were lost essentially in violence. And the third is what's happening with the Manipur Assembly. It says no governor's assent. Manipur Assembly sees session a non-starter.
So, everything is a non-starter now. The peace committee is a non-starter. The session is becoming a non-starter. So, I think that is why the Congress jumped in and said that the law and order machinery in Manipur is in fact breaking down. And, interestingly enough, they've started to put this technicality on the governor saying why it's a non-starter. And as I was saying, actually it was the kind of problems that emerged when the session was announced itself, with many of them saying they will boycott it, some of them trying to push a resolution in it.
But what kind of a message does this send out to the people who are, who are looking for their lawmakers, their policy makers to finally get together and talk it out in the temple of democracy, like we call it, our assemblies and the parliament?
Kabir?
The larger message, it seems like people on the ground don't want reconciliation or are stopping. There are lobbies that don't want reconciliation to happen, because I'm sure there are a lot of other people, like the 10,000, more than 10,000 plus children that are out of school, the plethora of people, the myriad of problems they're going through, lack of ration supplies, and so many of them innocent and have still and yet lost their loved ones. What about those?
First,
what message does this send out to those who are looking towards the assembly?
This shows
for help?
things are not at all in place in Manipur. You don't have a functioning government in Manipur if this is the kind of situation that we are going to see, where your sessions cannot be held. Of course, your sessions cannot be held. Why your sessions can't be held? Because it's a rift in the assembly. Secondly, why your sessions cannot be held? Because there is no law and order. thirdly, why the situation is happening, the continuous violence has been happening in the state, and it started on May 3rd. Now, it's May 3rd, June 3rd, July 3rd and August 3rd. I mean, you have almost, it's reaching 4 months of this violence, that is senseless violence that's going on, and still there has been no control on that violence. Every day we keep speaking about it. The fact is there's no forward movement on the ground. And people are hiding behind technicalities of trying to bring in a session. People are hiding behind, their political representations or the people that they represent, saying that they have pressure from them. But the fact remains is nobody is there to talk. And the reason why nobody is ready to talk is because the primary focus, law and order, should be restored. Then only the rest can follow. But since law and order has not been restored the way it has to be restored, we see this chaos happening.
Well, what is this constitutional crisis going to lead to is, really worrisome right now, because your politicians is something that you look up to, look towards, but it seems like the people also on the ground don't want reconciliation. Everybody is sticking to their own demands. The assembly has not been convened. No governors are sent over there. The NH2, which is the main heartline, again gets blocked. And on top of that, the Supreme Court has asked the government to reissue identification cards, where already there's a problem of biometrics, of national register. So many things in terms of identification is happening. There's a porous border, the golden triangle. We talk about the multiple socio-economic fault lines, the guns that people have, the sophisticated weaponry that people still have with them on the ground.
Also, there's one complication that has come in this.
Right.
The Naga Council opposes demand by Kuki groups. This is from the
earlier it was Kukis versus Metis, but now I'm not saying it's Kukis versus Metis versus Nagas, but the Naga community is also, I mean, and rightly so, they live there, don't they?
In fact, they also have these territorial claims that they've been making.
Right.
So this is how that story is coming in. Responding to demands by the Kuki-Zo community for a separate administration in Manipur, the United Naga Council on Monday issued a statement opposing the inclusion of alleged disputed territory, which includes areas that were in Chandel and Senapati districts before they were carved out as part of the proposed administration. The UNC Manipur said that there was no Anglo-Kuki war in 1917 or 19, calling it a rebellion that ended in the massacre of Nagas living in Ukrul, Chandel and Tamglong. It further said that Kukis were distorting history in a bid to legitimize their imagined Kuki homeland within the Naga ancestral homeland. The UNC said its statement was a reaction to several representatives by Kuki-Zo civil society organizations and MLAs seeking a separate administration. So even if you look for separate administration, and if Naga areas are involved in this, you see it is not going to be an easy thing.
Well, absolutely. We'll have to wait and watch as to what happens on the Manipur front. Things certainly not looking too bright, and people are constantly talking about how peace needs to prevail and reconciliation needs to happen, but it seems like neither of the three communities want to see each other eye to eye. And on top of that, the cherry on the top, it seems like, is that the governor's assent has
but
not
that is
been
only
given.
technicality, Kabir. I was just telling you, it's only technicality.
Right.
They're just trying to find reasons why they can't hold it. That's
why to delay the process.
They're just trying to blame it on someone, because as I told you, law and order should be there for something to happen, no?
Right, absolutely. All right, let's shift our focus to Chandrayaan, ladies and gentlemen. We're 1 day away from a potential successful soft landing on the dark side of the moon. Chandrayaan 1, you remember what Chandrayaan 1 did for India and the global stage. We discovered water on the lunar surface, and at the same time, whilst we're talking about the dark side of the moon, Chandrayaan 2 was a huge learning curve for us. Now Chandrayaan 3 and all our missions, Mangalyaan, from whatever happened in that little church in Kerala, that small fishing hamlet, today India is reaching the stars.
Is it, a lot of people actually don't know that ISRO started off its operations from that small church.
Absolutely.
And the fishermen folk actually gave that church to ISRO, and from
yesterday
there onwards,
we showed you images that was there you go. That's the latest update. Chandrayaan 3 mission has made contact with the Chandrayaan 2 orbiter, which is still, chilling out there in the lunar orbit. It says, welcome buddy, two-way communication between the two has been established. MOX has now more routes to reach the lunar the LM, the lunar mass.
You know, actually, the first mission we were talking about was you had the orbiter as well as the the lander being launched together. But now we had to
Now
launch.
it says here, live telecast of the landing event begins at 17:20 hours. That's 5:20 hours IST. That's going to happen tomorrow. But what I'm saying is, this is what I'm saying. There is a possibility, and here's the Chandrayaan landing twist, ladies and gentlemen, because there is a possibility, and there's just a contingency plan that ISRO has come up with, and we've got a reaction coming in from ISRO as well, that there might be a potential delay. This, if the conditions don't favor us to be landing tomorrow, then we will wait it out. We might land on the 27th of this month. This coming in from ISRO. I think we've got a reaction. I'm just going to check with the control room once. If we have that reaction by the ISRO scientist, let's quickly play that out and tell the viewers what is this Chandrayaan landing twist that we're talking about essentially.
30 किलोमीटर की एल्टीट्यूड या हाइट से लैंडर नीचे की ओर चंद्र की सतह पर जाने का प्रयास करेगा 23 अगस्त को, और उसके 2 घंटे पहले हम पूरे जो कमांड है वो यहाँ से जो हमारा बाइलालू अर्थ स्टेशन है वहाँ से अपलोड कर देंगे लैंडर मॉड्यूल के अंदर। और उसके बाद जो लैंडर मॉड्यूल की हेल्थ चेकिंग, टेलीमेट्री और चंद्र में जो स्थिति है उसको सबको ध्यान में रखते हुए लगभग 2 घंटे पहले हम ये निर्णय लेंगे कि उस दिन चंद्र पे उत्तरायण करना ठीक रहेगा कि नहीं रहेगा। तो अगर मेरे ख्याल से कोई और मुश्किल तो आने वाली है नहीं, और हम पूर्णतया 23 अगस्त को ही चंद्र पे उतरने का प्रयास करेंगे। बट अगर कोई हमको ऐसा आपत्तिजनक लगता है तो हम लैंडिंग को पोस्टपोन करके 27 अगस्त को करेंगे। तो उसके लिए भी हमने पूरा सावधानी बरती है, और उसके लिए जो भी कार्य करना है वो जो सब प्रणाली है वो सब भी तैयार रखी है। तो हम जो मोस्ट प्रोबेबली हम 23 अगस्त को ही उत्तरायण करेंगे, अन्यथा 27 अगस्त को। और 23 अगस्त को 30 किलोमीटर की हाइट से वो लैंडर नीचे उतरने का प्रयास करेगा। तो और उसकी जो वेलोसिटी होगी 30 किलोमीटर की हाइट पे वो लगभग 1.68 किलोमीटर पर सेकंड, जो काफ़ी गति मानी जाती है, स्पीड मानी जाती है, उससे वो नीचे की ओर प्रयाण करेगा। और जैसा कि आपको पता है चंद्र का जो गुरुत्वाकर्षण है वो उसको नीचे की ओर खींचेगा। तो उसके बाद वो इसलिए हमको जो थ्रस्टर इंजन है उसको रेट्रोफायर करना पड़ेगा, जिससे कि उसकी स्पीड कम होती जाए, और धीरे धीरे जब चंद्र की सतह पर पहुंचेगा तब लगभग 0 स्पीड हो जाएगी उसकी। तो उसके लिए हमको इंजन थ्रस्टर फायर करेंगे। तो ऐसे 4 थ्रस्टर इंजन हमने लगाए हुए हैं लैंडर मॉड्यूल में। तो पहले 30 किलोमीटर से वो 7.5 किलोमीटर पे आएगा, वहाँ से 6.8 किलोमीटर पे आएगा। उसके बाद वो 2 इंजन हम बंद कर देंगे और फिर 2 इंजन से ही नीचे की ओर प्रयाण करेगा। जो 2 इंजन उसको रिवर्स थ्रस्ट देंगे, जिसके कारण जैसा कि मैंने बताया जब 30 किलोमीटर पे था उसकी गति 1.68 किलोमीटर पर सेकंड थी, वो 6.8 किलोमीटर तक आते आते 350 मीटर पर सेकंड तक हो जाएगी, यानी कि 4 गुना कम हो जाएगी। उसी तरह वो 6.8 किलोमीटर से फिर 800 मीटर तक आएगा, और तब लगभग उसकी स्पीड जो है वो 0 मीटर पर सेकंड जैसी हो जाएगी।
Well, so that's what the ISRO scientist over there is telling us, that it's going to come up to a height of just 800 meters above, the lunar surface. At that point, its velocity is going to be pretty much zilch, 0. And that's the one possibility that he's talking about, that if conditions don't favor our landing situation, then we might just postpone this, and for the betterment and for the sake of carrying out the experiments, because let's not forget, if one lunar day we need the sun to be shining on the dark side of the moon for our machines, our lander, Vikram lander and Pragyan rover to be functioning, because they're solar operated, they're solar powered. As soon as the sun goes down, so does our functioning of these two probes on the lunar surface. We need to make sure that we get the maximum utility out of the sunlight on the lunar surface and our 14 days back at home, because scientific experiment and research is the prime reason why we've sent this module up there, isn't it, Varghese?
Well, one of the issues also that he pointed out was this is part of the safety checks, and probably when it came to Luna, which had that unfortunate crash on the moon's surface, I think ISRO scientists are being a little more cautious. They're just trying to check everything, because he said that we'll just check all our instrumentation, we will recheck the calculations that we have done, and in case if there is this thing, then we will postpone the landing as such. But then you were also telling me in the morning, remember Kabir, that what the former director Sivan had said. He said that it all depends upon that 1 hour before landing whether decision is taken to land or not to land. So this data that is being that will be coming in will be the deciding factor, and I think they are prepared for contingencies as well. But people are going to be a little overcautious about it because of the recent kind of a situation that we saw with the Russian moon probe, and therefore I think the ISRO, the ISRO scientists are just being a little cautious about it, trying to have contingency plans also at the same time.
This is how the Dainik Bhaskar has put it. It's got you spoke about Dr. K. Sivan. Dr. K. Sivan's article is on the front page of the Dainik Bhaskar here. It says Chandra Darshan Muhurat Kal. 4 साल पहले चंद्रयान 2 की लैंडिंग की वो रात बहुत बुरी थी, इस बार हमारी तैयारी पुख्ता. We're better prepared and no room for any kind of mishap at all. Now it's important to note here, friends, what the lander and rover will do after moon touchdown. Let's talk about that as well. After landing, ISRO is going to be busy with the rover ops. So the lander is going to open its door like that, and the rover is just going to slide down
26 kg
from
thing.
it. Of course, it can communicate with the ISDN, the Chandrayaan 2 orbiter, and the rover. This is what the lander can do. It's a 6-wheeled, rover. The mission life is 1 lunar day, which is 14 Earth days. So about half a month of scientific experiments, 26 kilograms, like you pointed out, 50 watts is what the power it's going to use. It's got 2 payloads on its own self. It's got it's got the alpha particle X-ray spectrometer that's going to derive chemical composition and infer mineralogical composition of the soil, and it's got LIBS, which is laser-induced breakdown spectroscope to determine elemental composition, magnesium, and a lot of other elements. I'm not the scientist here in the room. Maybe you do a better job at reading all of this.
No, the idea is, the question has been always been, Kabir, is to find out what is the composition of the moon is. So, there have been questions about whether there can be rare earth minerals also out there, which could be used for industrial purposes. And at the same time, the question has always been also, when it comes to the issue about how we can, see the aspect about not only the spectrometry part of it, but how one can actually get a hold on whether there is water, because one of the significant factors is that they want to have a colony of sorts within the place, and once that colony kind of situation that we are looking at, the basic...
You really want a colony to get stable, established.
Because it becomes a launching...
I'm telling you, they're going to go for resorts, they're going to go for hotels, there is going to be nothing sustainable that's going to be done over there. We're already on the way to destroy our own planet. And you remember what Group Captain V.N. Jha was saying? Anything that we take out of the moon or put on the moon will alter the mass of the planet. And it's every year, a little inch, it's going away from the Earth. That means, where lunar gravitational pushes, it already affects the seas and the water, the high tide, the low tide. I'm saying just let it be. Carry out your experiments. Maybe just go there. Let it be a jumping station to go to other side. Because if there is water over there, and this is why a lot of spacefaring is done on the moon, because if at all there is water over there in the parts that are, completely covered with shadow throughout the year, that are absolutely cold.
It becomes a spaceport, basically.
Absolutely. We can then ionize
too futuristic, but yeah.
It has oxygen capacities which can accelerate and propel rockets and spacecrafts to, other parts of the solar system. Needless to say, fingers still crossed. I'm confident it's going to happen tomorrow, but the ISRO scientist out there has said that, it might get pushed till the 27th if and only if the conditions do not favor us for landing. All in all, we're still getting there after the crash of, Lunar 25, that competition that people already had with, Chandrayaan and, India and Russia, that has gone. There's a little cartoon by Unni on the Indian Express. It says, it's got, a photograph of the Russian President Vladimir Putin sitting on the table like that. and he's looking at the moon. The crescent of the moon is a U, and there's crane written all, right next to it. And he's got a paper that says Luna over here, and he's looking at the moon, which is the U of the crane, the Ukraine, because there is a war that's going on. People have talked, spoken about how there is lack of, there is more vanity and lack of actual work that's being done. There's poor management, delayed projects. I mean, we're talking about more than 47 years later.
Roscosmos, which is the successor of the USSR Space Agency, is actually now a shadow of its parent agency. So they have a lot of challenges, but they did attempt it. And this is not going to be the last that the Russians have done. Interestingly enough, they have launched, I think, 23 probes to land on the moon, of which I think 13 landed, 13 were meant to land. In that 13, 8 landed and 5, well, it did not meet with success.
You know what? Everybody has also covered Praganananda's, recent bid to reach the finals of the Chess World Cup. Now, he's in the Chess World Cup, and Praganananda is, he set a date with history, ladies and gentlemen, and this is how the Times of India has put it. It has quoted Praganananda saying that I really wanted to qualify for the candidates early. The qualification goes on till December. I didn't want to finish 4th here and wait for Magnus's decision. That's what Praganananda has said. He's unstoppable at the age of 21. And Varghese, you were telling us that later on in the day he's going to make sure that people remember his name and pronounce it correctly. And it's not just the media persons or the chess community; it's going to be everybody in the country. Magnus Carlson. I mean, this boy is 21 years old.
Is going to. I say if he's given, he might be giving a run for Carlson's money. But I'm just waiting for that match to happen, and probably I say, as I told you, everyone in this country will know his name when he does that. And
Praganananda beats world number 2, sets up title clash with Carlson. In the post-pandemic world, a new wave of Indian teenagers swamped the chess landscape, but the 18-year-old R. Praganananda remains the OG, the original child prodigy. The other bright young stars, D. Gukesh, Arjun Erigaisi and Nihal Sarin, are all walking the path paved by the Chennai boy who goes by the name of Praggu on the global chess circuit. On Monday, Praggu nudged a reminder by downing the reigning US chess champion and world number 2, Fabiano Caruana, via the tiebreaker to enter the final of the FIDE World Cup chess tournament in Baku, where Magnus Carlson, the modern day grandmaster per se, the OG per se, he's going to finally meet him in the finals. What do you think is going to happen, Varghese?
I want Pragnananda to win. That is there, of course. But Carlson is a formidable player, and he is being a grand chess master. He knows the thing. But let's see. I put my bets on Pragnananda.
Praganananda versus Magnus Carlson. Get down in the comment sections and tell us about what you think is going to happen. And whilst I've hit the sports page, let me just talk about a couple of other stories as well. Djokovic got a revenge match against Alcaraz. Remember we were talking about how Alcaraz won the Wimbledon, and Djokovic, with that racket smash on the net, the side net, and him leaving in disgust. But of course, a champion's a champion, and right now in the Cincinnati Open, it seems like Djokovic, he tore his shirt after winning, beating Alcaraz in the final. He just completely tore off his shirt.
Redemption, is it?
Also, taking a look at, yesterday we cut live to the BCCI's announcement of the squad for the Asia Cup. It says here the core issue: Rahul picked despite niggle. Iyer, Bumrah, Tilak in Asia Cup squad as selectors try to find nucleus for the World Cup. This is happening even as our team, led by Jasprit Bumrah, great to see him bowling again, is, in Ireland, facing the Ireland team over a series of matches. But all eyes on Asia Cup matches to be played in Pakistan, couple of matches to be played in Sri Lanka as well. Meanwhile, shifting our focus to another, particular update. coming from the Supreme Court and the Enforcement Directorate over there. What's that particular news all about, Varghese? Supreme Court coming in on the Enforcement Directorate saying that essentially understand what your powers are. Don't oversee your powers. What is this case particularly, and why is the Supreme Court saying so?
Well, this particular case was related to a person whom they wanted to get him being more involved with the Chhattisgarh liquor policy angle. In fact, they allege that there is this liquor syndicate that is there, and the ED was looking into the operations of this alleged liquor syndicate. So they wanted to extend the custody of one more person and also get him. That is when the Supreme Court said that, well, you can't be a law unto yourself. You have to go by the book on this, and they in fact refused to intervene in that. And that is something that was looked into, and I'll just read some of the excerpts from the observation as well. Now, the Supreme Court restrained the Enforcement Directorate and the Uttar Pradesh government from proceeding with a fresh case against the accused in an alleged liquor syndicate racket in Chhattisgarh. The court stated that ED cannot act as a law unto itself, and the agency or the police cannot take any coercive steps against the accused named in the first information report. The court also directed that the petitioners in the case could not be arrested or subjected to any other coercive steps. Enforcement Directorate cannot be a law unto itself, the Supreme Court observed on Monday, restraining the federal agency and Uttar Pradesh government from proceeding in a fresh case registered by the former against some of the accused in the alleged liquor syndicate racket in Chhattisgarh. Now, according to a bench by Sanjay Kishan Kaul, the agency or UP police cannot take any coercive steps against the accused named in the first information report, which was registered on July 30th, after ED provided information on fake holograms being manufactured in a company near Noida in Uttar Pradesh. So, basically it is to say that since the case is already going on, you cannot coerce the person to be again subjected into your custody, and therefore it makes these observations restraining the UP government as well as the ED from going ahead and filing a fresh case against the accused who's named in the in that FIR.
Absolutely. And even as we're talking about the Supreme Court has, weighed in on several other cases as well. Varghese, let's shift our focus because on the top page, two things that people are talking about. People are talking about how the Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand are again going to receive rains, but that's not our focus right now. We'll talk about that. But first and foremost, we saw those cracks appearing in Joshimath. We saw those cracks appearing in Chamoli. We saw those cracks appearing in various houses in Shimla as well. Subsidence is a real threat, not just for Uttarakhand, it seems like for the Himalayan states as well. Supreme Court is going to form a panel to evaluate the hill towns' carrying capacity. And it's important and it's great that, we're trying to save the Queen. We're trying to save our hill stations. It says here, Shimla faces a catastrophe. Only decongestion and a full ban on construction can buy it time, say experts. Will the state government pay heed? Shimla, aaj chutti mili, kal Shimla. Next vacation, where are you going? We're going to Shimla, we're going to Mussoorie. All these hill stations across Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand, or the Dham Yatras, the pilgrimages, it's actually taking a toll on the land over there. Commercialization comes with it.
Exactly.
So comes hotels, resorts.
And then comes the population also.
So
you have the increase in the population of these towns. So what is the carrying capacity that the court is talking about? The carrying capacity is the maximum population size that a region can sustain without degrading the ecosystem. So probably we might be looking at population restrictions coming in when it comes to...
complete ban on constructions. So this is how the Times of India puts it. And I really like the headline over here because it's a question. It's a question. And these are visuals that we're seeing of the recent rains, the deluges, the landslides, the floods across Uttarakhand. This is what the Times of India is asking. Who will save the Queen? So, who will save the Queen? This monsoon showed how close Shimla is to a catastrophe. Experts say only a complete ban on all construction and decongestion can buy time, but Himachal government solution is to build taller buildings rather than a lot of them spread across a huge land area. The Queen of Hills, as once quaint and pretty Shimla was known, was built for 25,000 people only. It now houses 2.5 lakh and does so in brazen defiance of geology.
Where is 25,000 and where is 2.5 lakhs?
My
Simple
goodness.
question.
My goodness.
Simple question. Where is 25 lakhs and where is 25,000? And
It's a
that
sorry
just
state of
shows the kind
affairs.
of pressure on that sensitive ecological zone. It shows the kind of problems that we see over there. And of course, when you have a growing population, you need accommodation, you need other facilities coming in, and therefore there is rampant construction. And because there is rampant construction, it leads to the degradation of the hills. And as it leads to the degradation of the hills, the soils become weak. And when it rains, the soils just flows down along with the water, and that is what results in the kind of
it's divided. It's divided. The article is essentially divided in three parts. It says it began in the 1990s. S.R. Harnoth, a resident and writer, makes a distinction that there has been no damage or loss in the core Shimla area. The whole problem is because of the unplanned, haphazard and unregulated construction. When the houses and shops at the mall were built many years back, the debris was dumped where Krishnanagar stands today, and Krishnanagar is where those landslide visuals that you saw of, that was exactly where Krishnanagar is. Now there is a sorry state of affairs as well, Varghese. Here's a short account of how Himachal government treated Shimla. In 2013, an environment impact assessment study commissioned by the town and country planning department had recommended a ban on construction not only in the green zones but all over Shimla. And then the third segment says 3 steps to avoid death. According to former town planner Shukla, allowing construction and vertical growth in the name of development is a death wish. The government has told the courts that the whole idea behind the SDP is to decongest Shimla and the nearby areas through vertical growth. You want to raise the height of buildings at a place like Shimla? It's sheer madness.
The higher the building, the weight of the building increases, the soil is loose, so you know what I'm talking about. And once the soil is loose and it is, you have water also involved in it, it just flows, and your building also flows along with it. Basically saying unscientific, lack of engineering principles being applied.
Absolutely. And you know what, I was reading on the front page of the Tribune, and this is the second aspect of our segment here on rains and deluges, because there's a landslip scare, and the Supreme Court wants the Himalayan regions' carrying capacity assessed. But at the same time, Varghese, there is more rain coming in.
It's saying the monsoon, the reason is because the monsoon trough has moved towards the northern states, and because of that, the rains are being attracted towards these regions, and because of that, you can expect more rains coming in.
The NH5 has sunk by several feet at Sanwara near Dharampur. Expert panel to study 13 states and union territories. The carrying capacity is the maximum population size. So, all right. So, this is a great, good on the Tribune's part. They've told us exactly what the carrying capacity is. So, when you're talking about what is the carrying capacity of Shimla, which is 25,000 people, and 2.5 lakh people are living there, and God knows how many are coming in and out, and you want to create even taller buildings.
Now, these are residents, 2.5.
These are residents.
I'm not sure about
non-residents.
Non-residents, tourists, when they keep coming in.
The panel will assess the carrying capacity and master plans of the Himalayan region across 13 states. The carrying capacity is the maximum population size that a region can sustain without degrading the ecosystem. But more rain that's coming in for Uttarakhand and Himachal, there's more alert. I can only imagine what the chief ministers of both these states must be going through right now, because the amount of devastation on the plus side of tens of thousands of crores.
10,000 crores alone in on one side in Himachal is the last assessment we had. 1.5 months ago, same region, again rains.
This is the third spell of rain.
And then you're going to have a third spell of rain. So it's like this monsoon has been really traumatic for the people of these two hilly states.
Well, what's going to happen next for these, hilly states is something that we'll have to wait and find out. But for all those who are now looking to venture out for their weekend getaways, don't venture out to the hills. For all those living in the hills, you're tracking our news service over here, do keep a check on the IMD. It is putting out, latest Met developments and weather developments vis-a-vis Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh. There's another spell of monsoon that's coming in for the hilly state. What next, Varghese? What next should we pick up?
Well, SC to constitute a new bench to hear Cauvery water issue. The Chief Justice of India, D.Y. Chandrachud, on Monday assured...
So, wait a minute. Cauvery water issue, essentially, where you're talking about the river Cauvery, and you're talking about the states of Karnataka and the state of Tamil Nadu that share the water, due to some olden, some...
See, when the actual, the Cauvery's actual agreement was written by the then Mysore Maharaja as well as the British state or the British presidency of Madras. So, in that it is being said that, it did not look into the actual needs of both farmers on both the sides. We must understand in the Cauvery Delta region is where the farming happens for Tamil Nadu, and it is the Cauvery Basin region where farming happens in the Karnataka side, and both are expansive areas where there is huge agricultural lands, and it is critical for both the states because their farm produce majorly comes from these areas. So it is a very important factor that we are looking into it. And one more thing is that there is a drinking water issue for Bengaluru. So already there is an issue about Mekidatu construction that is already worrying.
The Mekidatu Dam.
Yeah, that is already worrying, Tamil Nadu as well, thinking that water shortage capacity will be there. But let me read some of the issues that have been raised over here. Appearing before the bench headed by Chief Justice Senior Advocate Mukul Rohatgi and Additional Advocate General Amit Anand Tiwari said that the plea was urgent. This is an urgent plea for release of Cauvery water for August as per the Cauvery Water Management Authority order. Your lordships have to constitute a bench, Mr. Rohatgi has submitted. Today itself I will constitute a bench is what the Chief Justice has said. Tamil Nadu has moved the Supreme Court seeking a direction to Karnataka to release 24,000 cusecs of Cauvery water forthwith from the reservoirs of Biligundulu for the remaining period of the month starting from August 14th. The state said the release of water was a dire necessity to meet the pressing demands of standing crops, that is on the Tamil Nadu side. Tamil Nadu has urged the court to direct Karnataka to ensure that the stipulated releases for September 36.76 TMC feet under the Cauvery Tribunal Award is modified by the Supreme Court in 2018. So, we can see how the situation is emerging over there. And plus, there is another political angle to this. Tamil Nadu being governed by DMK and you have Congress in Karnataka. And remember, they are all part of I.N.I. I mean, the India Alliance, INDIA. I mean, with the dots. I can't say India, right? India is a different. I consciously try to mention that I dot N dot.
No, but you're right. But what's going to happen now is that the Deputy Chief Minister of Karnataka, D.K. Shivkumar, he's going to move the Supreme Court, which again is going to put that decision in another limbo of sorts. Right? Is that going to happen? Because I think that is what's been happening for the better part. I remember reading about the Cauvery water dispute before the pandemic and after the pandemic, and it seems like we haven't really taken a further step.
The Cauvery issue is going to be, I mean, it's going to be an issue because you have farmlands on the basin area and the delta area, which is going to press for water. And the capacity of the river, it's reached its maximum, and Cauvery is a rain-fed river, first of all, and we have to understand that it has its limitations, but the acreage of increase in farming on both sides now have to be restricted because there is no water to ensure that the increasing acreage of crops is in fact met. So both the governments should become realistic in what they are demanding.
Right. Even as we're talking about water, I'm reading here in the Tribune, a little bit of a Punjab focus. It says, 5 die in Kapurthala, in Fazilka, no let up in dam discharge really. Dam in Pong and the Bhakra Dam, their limits are 1390 and 1680 feet respectively. The current levels are almost at limit, and the outflow in cusecs is quite a lot as well. So 5 people have died due to the floods in Kapurthala. There is no let up in dam discharge. There's a flooded government schools picture right here on the front page. But shifting our focus back to the national capital, ladies and gentlemen, the Burari minor rape case is something that has come to light. The Delhi officer rape case is what people are calling it. A minor, girl who was allegedly raped by a Delhi officer, an officer from the Women and Child Development Department. He has been arrested, his wife has been arrested, but more importantly, the DCW, Delhi Commission for Women's Chief, Swati Maliwal, she tried to visit the hospital, where the minor rape victim was admitted, and the police did not let her in. She put out visuals on the microblogging website X, former Twitter. and she put out those visuals where you can see her, staging a dharna right outside the hospital premises. Those are visuals of Swati Maliwal, the DCW chief, on your screens. Now, the officer has been arrested and the wife has also been arrested because the wife, gave abortion pills to the minor girl.
Yeah, that is the thing about it. And I was also looking at some of this thing. Burari horror put spotlight on church. It is saying that the family shared a bond that went back to 1998, Kabir, when they first met during Sunday prayers at Amazing Grace Church in Shahadara in East Delhi. But their time in the church, which was later shifted to Burari, overlapped because of the common heritage. Both families are originally from Ranchi in Jharkhand, where they followed the Lutheran church. And they have a huge this thing of the timeline that they are talking about.
Right.
So Burari rape horror puts, as I was reading, they have a much more extensive coverage in the third page, where they said that the trust emerged from the string of ties that they in fact shared and the kind of bond that they had. When they moved to Delhi, their searches for
the
a
minor
Lutheran
girl's
church,
father passed away, and
yes, and
that's it's
I-
so
the
gut-wrenching that
this
the
person
father's demise has been used.
Basically, he tried to portray himself as a father figure to that child, and he won the trust of that family. And of course, what led is nothing short of completely a big horror that we are looking. Now more.
And this the statement coming out from Swati Maliwal herself says that these are Delhi officers that prevented her from meeting the minor rape survivor.
They are. I think the issue over here is also about. Everyone speaks about this factor, but we look at the case, we look at the horror about it, but it is going to be very difficult for that 15. I mean, then she was 15 years old then to come out of what it is.
Absolutely.
It's the trust factor
In
about
that
it.
particular timeline, it suggests that it happened. It only happened on the 7th of August this year, when a counselling took place, and she let out these particular ordeals in front of the counsellor.
Yeah, that is when she actually started speaking about this abuse, because she was.
According to the timeline, when did the complication actually begin?
Well, it's in 1998. Both of them, in fact, met. The families, in fact. The minor suffers multiple anxiety attacks between July to August in 2023, and then in August 12th, that is when the counsellor reports matter to the police. Now, this is the counsellor who reported the matter to the police, not the family, remember this, okay? And her mother take her to a city hospital where she is counselled. During these sessions, she reveals about the alleged rape. That's on August 7th that happens, and the counsellor, in fact, reports this. The incident started happening when she moved in with this family, where this person had in fact said that he would take care of her, and that is when he in fact abused her, basically abused the entire the kind of trust that person was having with this family. I mean, it's it's a very shocking case about how trust is being manipulated and used.
Talking about trust being manipulated, let's shift our focus here. Talk about Donald Trump and how he manipulated the trust of his voters as well. He's going to plead guilty.
I mean, plead guilty as well. That is to say, basically surrender in that election interference case.
In the Georgia case.
In the Georgia case, he's already in. This is in Alaska. I think this is in Atlanta or Alaska. One of those. It is in Atlanta, I think.
All right. And Donald Trump is going to now surrender in that particular case, which essentially means that he did try to manipulate those votes. Right?
That's how the arguments would go.
What does this mean for the 2024 presidential race? People have been talking about it for
basically how
this
will affect the Republican primaries. I think that is where we need to in fact take a look at how things did go when it came to him. This is with regards to Atlanta, by the way, Kabir. And I think we should be looking at the primaries, and in the primaries there are strong contenders who don't want him to in fact reach the primaries at all. So Donald Trump has been trying to have a second term at office despite all these
but is it going to be possible now?
It's going to be difficult. It depends upon those primaries, and in that primary we have a very loyal Donald Trump kind of a bloc who would try to push for him, but there are stronger blocs emerging in Republican Party who do not want to have Trump taking up a second chance. But then this is all politics. Let's wait and watch how the primaries in fact go.
Absolutely, we'll have to wait and find out. Here on the front page of the Times of India, it says another Supreme Court related story, but important, and one that needs your attention as well, ladies and gentlemen, because the Supreme Court has slammed the Gujarat High Court. Why? for counter-blast order. The Gujarat High Court once again came under criticism from the Supreme Court for passing an order to counterblast the order of the Apex Court that had disapproved the High Court's lackadaisical approach in dealing with the plea of a 25-year-old woman for medical termination of pregnancy. A bench of Justices B.V. Nagaratna and Ujjal Bhuyan, which had on Saturday passed observation against the High Court for causing delay in deciding the abortion plea and dismissing it without uploading the order, expressed displeasure with the Gujarat High Court when it was informed that the High Court had passed a reasoned order on the same day after the hearing in the Apex Court. We do not appreciate the High Court's counterblast to the Supreme Court's orders, is what the bench said. The Supreme Court is quoted here as well. It says, we do not appreciate the High Court's counterblast to the Supreme Court's order. What is happening in the High Court of Gujarat? Question mark. Do judges reply like this to a superior court's order? These kinds of attempts are being made by High Court judges to circumvent something that the Supreme Court has said.
It just shows.
So can the High Court, with these counterblast orders, circumvent what the Supreme Court is saying is the bigger question here.
There have been instances in which some of the judges, it's not only Gujarat High Court, tried to circumvent when it came to the Supreme Court order, and you had judges and in fact raising that issue as well. And one of the judges I remember a long back case, in fact asked who that judge was who gave that order that tried to dilute the Supreme Court's judgment. So this was during Mr. Mishra's tenure as the CJI. So there have been several instances in which this has happened, and this is another instant of which
the court expressed surprise.
Seems to be directly in complete countering the SE in this.
And
I
does that often happen? The court expressed surprise on how the Gujarat High Court can pass an order in a case that has already been disposed of, and that too without giving notice to the party. No court in India can pass an order like this on a Saturday against a superior court order. There was no need for the High Court to justify, said the bench. So it seems like it became more of a prestige issue, and the Gujarat High Court sort of like looked up to the Supreme Court, but became a situation of showing the torchlight to the sun. It seems like
it looks like that. It's that's the kind of situation. But then it's also kind of worrisome that, you know, at the end of the day, what the Supreme Court say becomes the law of the land, law of all the states in this country. So there cannot be a separate kind of an interpretation to that judgment, the Supreme Court's judgment, and I think that is where the learned justices have hit out on that. Well, also one small thing, Kabir, on admissions. Remember, just when we started out,
right? St. Stephen's, the 1815 formula. CUET is the actual way of getting through to all DU admissions. The Central University entrance
this
test.
Is also
all public universities.
Yes, and this is also involving the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court on Monday refused to interfere with the Delhi High Court interim order allowing St. Stephen's College to conduct interviews of Christian candidates seeking admission under the minority quota, and said that only order passed at this stage will be too late and will result in uncertainty among students. Now, the interim order came on the petition by the college asking for a stay on a 2022 decision by the Delhi University Executive Council, insisting that all colleges consider only CUET scores. The interim order was challenged by DU and UGC. But here what happens in St. Stephen's, there's a small change. What happens over here is that the HC in its July 21 order permitted the college to admit Christian minority students on the basis of 85% weightage for CUET scores and 15% weightage for interviews. So they have a separate kind of an process for admission for Christian students in the minority quota, and therefore you had 15% of interview that was carried out and 85% weightage was given to your CUET score, but non-minority students would have completely the CUET scores for their admissions into St. Stephen's. So this was a kind of...
So who is this helping? Who is this helping? Is this
right now, I think what the Supreme Court, what
I
understand right now is that what the Supreme Court says is that right now it's too late to make any kind of a change in the admission process. It will lead to confusions. So right now, let the procedure go as it is. Probably on the later date, we might sit and debate about it.
All right. There's another input that's coming in from the Press Trust of India. It says an IED has been recovered. IED explosive has been recovered on the Jammu and Kashmir highway in Jammu. It has been defused. An improvised explosive device planted by suspected terrorists on the Jammu-Srinagar National Highway was detected and defused by security personnel on the outskirts of Jammu capital city, thereby averting a major tragedy. You can take a look at these visuals that we've got for you. A suspicious object has been spotted alongside the highway at Chandrayaan area of Nagrota in Jammu. The technical examination of object initiated immediately. Senior Superintendent of Police Jammu Chandan Kohli was on the site. He was present. The traffic was suspended on the Jammu-Srinagar highway in that particular area. You can already see it's the wee hours of the night. The suspicious object which was found at the Panchgrain area was an improvised explosive device. The bomb disposal squad was called on the spot, and IED has been destroyed through a controlled mechanism, is what the SSP has said. So it has been diffused via a controlled mechanism. The IED was destroyed. A case under relevant sections of law has been registered, and an investigation has been taken up. Traffic was restored on the highway after the operation got done over with. This is what we're picking up. Only yesterday we were talking about, how the encounter was happening in Pulwama. Later on, in the latter half of last week, encounters carried on across Kulgam, various parts of South Kashmir. It really does tell us that, the security forces on the ground don't have it easy at all. They're working round the clock, maybe clocking double shifts sometimes.
Yeah, they are clocking double shifts. And of course, a place like Kashmir, where there have been elements trying to disrupt the peace in the place, they've been trying to disrupt and create a kind of a militant movement. After the abrogation of Article 370, they've been on the wane. Militancy has been on the wane, and they've been trying to, prop it up at any cost. But it seems that takers for it is now very less. And the security forces, of course, trying to be quite alert right now, because of they want to ensure that the peace sustains and the militancy's waning or decline continues further.
Well, absolutely. Also, there's this caste sticker on various vehicles. That news is doing the rounds. Would you know anything about that? Because we've got, there's a proper crackdown that's taking place in Noida and in Ghaziabad over religious caste remarks on vehicles. Now, on Thursday, during a visit to Varanasi, Yogi Adityanath told officials during a review meeting that this practice needs to be banned. Why? Because Yadav, Gurjar, Pandit, Tyagi, Brahmin, Thakur, Jat, Hindu, 786 for Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim when it comes to Muslims. Over 2,300 challans were issued against vehicles bearing such caste and religious stickers by the Gautam Budh Nagar and Ghaziabad police. According to me, and in my limited opinion and perspective, a real great and welcome step.
Actually, welcome step.
The action was part of a 10-day special drive that started on the 11th of August and ended on Sunday. Police, however, said action against such traffic violations will continue, as UP Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath had recently directed officials to stop the practice of people displaying their caste on vehicles. People said this is an offence under sections 179 of the Motor Vehicles Act, which deals with disobedience of any direction lawfully given by any person or authority empowered under the Act. Quite ambiguous over there, and the ambit of this law is really the umbrella law is, it is too big, because you'll have to deal with any law that has been authorized under the Motor Vehicles Act.
One of the,
but it's great that you
that's
can't
great has
display
been
it.
done, because that was, if you look at those stickers, they are not just displaying your identity, it is also an aggressive display of your identity that is at play, and that's quite worrisome as well.
In the last 10 days, we issued a total of 1542 challans against vehicles with caste, religion and other objectionable things written on them. Our action is not limited to this special drive. We will continue to issue challans if we find such things on vehicles, said Ramanand Kushwaha, the ADCP of traffic in Ghaziabad. Similarly, Noida Traffic Police has issued over 750 challans. A rupees 1000 challan is issued for writing words indicating caste or religion on the vehicle. If such things are on a number plate, then the fine for the same is rupees 5000. As per the Motor Vehicle Act, it is illegal to write anything other than number on the number plate, said Anil Kumar Yadav, who is the DCP traffic of Gautam Budh Nagar. One slight little hiccup over here, Varghese, and do weigh in on this as well. Jat, Gujar, Tyagi, Shia, Sunni, these might be castes and subsects of your religion. 786 is Bismillah Rahman Rahim. Does that mean banning pictures and those decals of Lord Ram, of Lord Shiv, of Lord Hanuman on the backside of the car, on the windshields, on the rear windshield? Is that also going to come off? Because that's a big question. You've said 786 won't fly.
Over here, what happens is that it is
786
is open to interpretation.
More to do with religion than caste.
I think over here, the more the interpretation of whether it qualifies to be
bearing
offense
such
or not.
caste and religious stickers, okay, that has been clarified. So religious stickers also under its ambit. It's going to be interesting to see how many of these do actually come off, because this number of 1500 challans in Ghaziabad, 750 challans in Noida is still not that high a number, but again a welcomed step. Don't you think, Varghese?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I don't think so that the car should be the advertising point of anyone's identity as such. But I am not against people having a religious symbol inside on top of the dashboard, because you believe that you have to have God when you go on a travel. So that doesn't, in fact, but there are stickers that are very aggressive, very kind of nepotistic in a way, and grandiose in a way, that tries to portray identity and identity clamor. So I think that is where Yogi Adityanath, the Chief
really
Minister,
progressive coming in from the Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath, who's carried out this special drive from the 11th of August, and it's going to culminate. But in the meantime, they're going to continue with this particular law. This observation is going to be put out by all the traffic marshals out there on the road. No religious or caste stickers on your cars, your bikes. So no Jat, Tyagi, Gujar, 786, Kareem, your baby boy, all of that stuff that's written on those, the front portions of various two-wheelers and the back portion, the rear windshield of all these vehicles. Well, that's not going to happen anymore. Anything that we're missing out on, Varghese? Anything that you want to peruse out on? Again, it seems like we've covered a lot today. That's the pulse of the day. That's essentially what it's looking like. We are going to keep a close tab on the Burari rape case. We're going to keep a close tab on K. Chandrasekhar Rao, even as he's released quite a few names in that list for the upcoming elections to the state of Telangana. We'll also keep our ears and eyes on the ground when it comes to the hearing that's going to happen in courtroom number 1, Article 370. It's probably day 8 or 7, if I'm not wrong, of the Article 370 hearing as it reaches the SC. Batch of petitions being heard that challenge the abrogation of Article 370. Apart from that, 12 p.m. today, we're again going to be looking at Chandrayaan. This time around, yesterday we spoke about the history of Chandrayaan, in the history of India's space program, Mangalyans, Chandrayaans, our PSLVs, GSLVs, how India is becoming a niche market as a service provider to send your satellite up there, in the lower orbit with actually quite good precision. So if you have a rocket, well, India is your point and person in interest. On the other hand, today we're going to look at the political mileage that we have received via India's space program, and the political history as well in the run-up to the 2023 23rd August, beg your pardon, landing of our lunar module Chandrayaan. It's doing well, it's doing good, it's up there, but there's a little landing twist. It might get pushed till the 27th. Manipur is again going to be our focus, and later on in the evening at about 8 p.m. we'll bring you all the international stories that you shouldn't miss out on under the global lens. That's all the time we have for you. This is Varghese P. Abraham. I'm Kabir Naqvi. Many thanks for joining News 9 Live. But before we go, let me also tell you, on the other side of this particular break, G20 is right around the corner. Our G20 Sherpa, Amitabh Kant, my colleague Neha Khanna, got an exclusive interview with Amitabh Kant. That's coming up right on the other side. Don't go anywhere.
China won't let us rest easy on our borders, but they will keep flooding our markets. What does Xi Jinping really want?
I think he wants the Indian market, no doubt about it. It's really a matter of showing their dominance.
India's great